I never thought I'd tell this story, but if you're listening, maybe you've been betrayed too. It started with dust heat and the metallic taste of adrenaline clinging to the back of my throat. I was stationed at Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan, the kind of place that makes you forget what quiet sounds like. That morning, we were sweeping a section near the south gate. Nothing unusual until it was. One second, I was checking a comms box. The next, the world cracked open. The explosion hit like thunder inside your skull. Dirt screams shrapnel. I remember diving, hitting the ground so hard I tasted blood. Private Jenkins' kid from Iowa was screaming. Not from pain. Just screaming. I didn't know it yet, but I had a piece of someone else's uniform stuck to my chest plate. We made it back to the tents. I was shaking, barely registering the medics patching us up. Standard post-blast routine. But I just kept thinking Emma, my wife. I needed to hear her voice. Just one voicemail. One goddamn I'm glad you're okay. Instead, I opened my laptop, hands still trembling from the blast. We only got Wi-Fi for 30 minutes a day, and I logged in like I always did, hoping maybe she'd sent a picture, a little video, anything. There it was. One email, no subject line. Adam. I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. I've waited for years. I'm tired of sleeping alone. Tired of wondering if you'll even make it home. I filed for divorce last week. You'll find the documents attached. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be. I need to move on. Emma. That's it. That was the whole message. No, I'm glad you're alive. No. Are you okay? Just a cold, clipped goodbye. 4 hours after I nearly died in a blast, my wife decided it was a good time to end our marriage. I didn't cry right away. I stared at the screen like it would change. Like the words would rearrange themselves into something softer. I read it 5 times. 10. I clicked the PDF, scrolled through legal jargon I couldn't process. I saw my name, her signature, and I broke. There's a kind of silence only soldiers know. Not the absence of sound, but the silence that follows devastation. And in that silence, I wept. In a dirt-stained tent, surrounded by the stench of sweat dust and dried blood, I wept like a child. Jenkins walked in, at some point, saw me hunched over, closed the flap without saying a word. God bless him. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger needs oxygen. I was still underwater, drowning in the shock of it all. How do you mourn someone who's still alive, but clearly no longer yours? I kept staring at that damn screen until my time ran out and the Wi-Fi cut off. The little signal bar went gray. It felt symbolic. Like even the internet didn't want to be with me that night. Later, I tried to sleep. But all I saw was the image of her standing at the altar in that simple white dress, smiling like I was the only man on earth. I used to believe that smile, but that night, $7,000 miles away from home, it hit me harder than any roadside bomb ever could. Emma had left me, and she did it in an email. We met in college, Virginia State. She was an English lit major who loved the rain and hated coffee, said it made her heart race and her hands tremble. I, on the other hand, lived off black coffee and midnight pizza. She liked thunderstorms. I liked clear skies. I never understood how she looked at me the way she did, like I was her favorite chapter, the one she kept rereading just to feel something. Her name was Emma. And for a long time, she was the best part of my life. We started off slow. Study partners. Then late-night walks. I remember the first time I kissed her under one of those ancient oak trees by the library. She smiled after and whispered, "Took you long enough." We got married 2 years later in a tiny courthouse ceremony. No guests, just us, our closest friend, holding a phone for pictures, and a promise we'd make it through anything, even deployment. When I joined the Army, she cried the night I left for basic. She clung to my jacket like letting go would mean losing me forever. I told her I'll come back, always. She believed me. At first, I was deployed 3 times over 8 years. First to Iraq, then Afghanistan. And every time she waited, she'd send me long letters decorated with silly doodles and perfume I could still smell even after months in my duffel bag. She made video messages with our dog Max. She never let a day go by without reminding me I was missed. But something changed after the 3rd year. Our calls got shorter. She stopped sending letters. When I video called, she always seemed distracted. Her eyes didn't light up like before. She'd glance at her phone, bite her lip, and say, "Sorry, work's been crazy." I brushed it off. Everyone has bad days. I had no idea those bad days were becoming our new normal. There were signs. I just didn't want to see them. One day, I asked if she still wanted to try for kids when I got home. Her face went blank. Maybe she said her voice hollow. That word maybe hit me like a slap. We used to dream out loud about a little girl with her curls and my crooked smile. A swing in the backyard. School lunches with love notes. Now it was maybe. I convinced myself she was just tired. That the distance had worn her down, but not her love. I even started planning a surprise vacation. For when I got home, booked us a cabin in Colorado. Her favorite place near the mountains, where the air felt like freedom. But she was already planning her exit. Looking back, I can't pinpoint the exact moment she stopped loving me. Maybe it wasn't a moment. Maybe it was a slow leak, tiny cracks I never noticed until everything crumbled. Still, I never thought she'd leave me like that. Cold, remote, like a business transaction. After all we'd survived together, she chose to walk away when I was still dodging bullets for a flag she said she believed in. And that's the part that stings the most, not that she left, but that she left like I never mattered. The morning after the email, I woke up on a cot that felt colder than usual. The sun hadn't risen yet, but the air outside was already thick with dust and the stench of diesel. I skipped chow, skipped roll call, just sat on the edge of my bunk staring at the wall like it owed me an answer. I didn't tell anyone. Not my CO, not my unit. What was I supposed to say? "Hey guys, my wife dumped me while I was dodging IEDs yesterday." No one wants to hear that. No one knows what to say to that. I tried to stay focused. Mission first. That's what they drill into you from day one. Eyes forward, boots firm, heart buried. But when your chest feels hollow, even your boots feel heavier. During downtime, I opened our bank account. Or tried to. Locked. Access denied. The joint account we built over 8 years, where my combat pay our savings, her salary, all of it gone. I reached out to the bank. They said the account had been closed and consolidated under her name. Weeks ago. Weeks! That means she had planned this. It wasn't impulsive. It wasn't emotional. It was clinical, quiet, coordinated. I checked the smart home app. Still had access to the front door camera. I guess she forgot to change that password. Or maybe she didn't think I'd still care. That night, I watched the recording from just 3 days earlier. There was a man. Mid-40s suit jacket, confident gait, walked up to our porch like he owned the place. Emma opened the door. She was laughing, not the tired, forced smile I'd seen over FaceTime. This was real, bright. She leaned in and kissed him, not on the cheek, full lips, right there in front of the house I hadn't even had the chance to return to. I stared at the screen for an hour, rewound, paused, replayed. My chest burned, but my hands were ice. I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I just shut down. That night, I requested emergency leave, cited family hardship. My CO looked at me like he knew something was wrong, but didn't press. He approved it. 1 week. No extensions. That wasn't enough. So I called my mom. First time in months. Told her I'd be flying into Richmond. She hesitated. "Sweetheart," she said slowly, "I think maybe it's better if you don't come home just yet." Why, I asked. A pause. Because Emma moved out. And she didn't leave a forwarding address. Just like that. My house gone. My wife gone. My money gone. And now I was being told not to come home because there was no home left to return to. I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I lay in bed, listening to the whir of generators and the muffled radio static. Somewhere out there, soldiers were gearing up for night patrols. Somewhere out there, my so-called wife was curled up in another man's arms. And me, I was stuck in a desert hellhole, a ghost in camo, wondering how the hell I'd gone from soldier to stranger in my own life. 3 months later, I stepped off that plane in Virginia with 2 duffel bags, a pair of worn-out boots, and no clue where I was supposed to go. No welcome sign. No hugs. No one waiting at the gate with a smile and tears in their eyes. Just strangers brushing past me, heading toward lives that weren't falling apart. I took a cab to the old neighborhood anyway. I don't know what I was expecting. Maybe some miracle. Maybe she'd be standing on the porch, realize she made a mistake, and run into my arms like some goddamn Hallmark movie. But the house, it wasn't ours anymore. The siding was painted a dull gray, and the wind chime she loved, the one I got her on our 2nd anniversary, was gone. Even the welcome mat was new. I knocked. A man answered. He looked confused. "You need something." I froze. "I used to live here." He raised an eyebrow. Said bought it 2 months ago from a woman. Said her husband passed away overseas. I didn't even reply. Just turned around and walked down the steps before my knees gave out. She told them I was dead. I ended up at a cheap motel just off the interstate. Paid cash. Sat on the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe through the weight pressing on my chest. A friend of mine, Jake, from my first deployment, messaged me out of the blue that night. Said he saw Emma's profile pop up in his People You May Know tab. He sent me the link. I clicked. New hair, new smile, new life, post after post of her. And that same man, Mark, apparently dining in Paris, hiking in Yosemite, celebrating her birthday with champagne in some high-rise I couldn't even afford on a sergeant's salary. And the captions, "Finally free, living for me. When you let go of what no longer serves you." What no longer served her. That's what I had become. A pair of old boots, an expired lease, a placeholder until something shinier came along. I didn't rage. I didn't comment. I didn't scream. I just stared at the screen, then closed my laptop. That was the night I stopped mourning her. Not because I didn't hurt. God, I hurt like hell. But something in me snapped back into place. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to chase. She erased me like I was an error in her perfect little storybook. Now it was time I started writing my own ending. The next morning, I made a decision, not out of spite, not out of revenge, just clarity, cold, sharp, undeniable clarity. I reached out to Steve, an old buddy from my first year in service. He'd gotten out a few years earlier and gone to law school. Now, he was a practicing attorney in Richmond, with a reputation for tearing people apart in court with a smile on his face. When I told him everything, he didn't even blink. Just sat back in his chair, hands folded, and said, "Do you have proof?" I opened my laptop and showed him everything. The email she sent while I was still deployed in an active war zone. Bank records showing the closed joint account and the new one under her name. Screenshots of her Facebook posts with marked timestamped and location tagged while she was still legally my wife. Security cam footage of the man entering our home. Even her new mortgage agreement signed just a week after she filed for divorce in her name only. Steve whistled low. "Damn, man. She really cleaned you out, didn't she?" Like a pro, I said. He leaned forward. "You ready to hit back?" I didn't say yes. I didn't have to. My silence was enough. Over the next few weeks, we built a case. And not just any case, a tactical precision-guided missile aimed directly at everything she thought she had secured. Turns out, divorcing someone who's actively serving in a combat zone without their consent, not so clean-cut. There's federal protection against that. Turns out, siphoning off joint funds without agreement, not so airtight. Turns out, committing marital fraud while simultaneously initiating legal proceedings. That's a big no-no in court. Steve filed a motion to reverse the divorce agreement, reclaim property rights, and demand compensation for emotional damages. I didn't care about the money, I cared about the truth. I kept everything quiet. I didn't message her, didn't comment, didn't let her know what was coming. Let her keep sipping champagne with her new man in the meantime. Let her live that Instagram dream. But I was watching and waiting. The hearing was scheduled 3 weeks out. That gave her just enough time to feel untouchable. The day I walked into that courtroom, dressed in my uniform medals pinned to my chest, not out of pride, but out of memory, I didn't feel fear. I felt empty. The kind of empty that makes room for something new. She walked in with Mark by her side, wearing a white blouse like it meant innocence. He sat 2 rows behind her arms, crossed, bored. She looked at me like I was a ghost. And maybe I was. Steve stood up and began to speak. Calm, methodical, surgical. He presented every shred of evidence, every photo document statement. When he pulled out the security cam footage and played it, the entire courtroom went silent. The sound of the front door opening, her voice laughing, the kiss. She didn't even try to deny it. When her attorney stood to object, Steve cut him off with one sentence. My client was nearly killed in Afghanistan 4 hours before receiving this divorce email. That's not just abandonment. That's betrayal at a level most of us will never understand. I didn't even look at her. I didn't have to. The courtroom was quiet. Not the kind of quiet you get out of respect. This was the kind of silence people fall into when they've just witnessed something irreversible. The judge leaned forward, adjusted her glasses, and looked straight at Emma. Given the evidence presented, this court finds the initial divorce proceedings invalid due to the respondent's active deployment status at the time. Additionally, the court rules that all marital assets acquired during the marriage be returned to the petitioner. Furthermore, the respondent is ordered to compensate the petitioner for financial and emotional damages incurred during this unauthorized process. Emma didn't move, didn't blink. She just sat there like the weight of the ruling hadn't landed yet. Steve packed up his files. I thanked him with a nod. That was all I had left in me. But then something unexpected happened. Mark stood up. Loudly. The bailiff took a step forward, ready to intervene. But he just scoffed, looked at Emma, and let loose. You dragged me into this mess for what? For some house and a car you don't even have anymore. Jesus, Emma, you said it was handled. You said he was signing off from the desert and wouldn't fight. You promised this would be easy. She turned to him whispering, please not here. But he wasn't done. You really thought I was going to play stepdad and live in your little fantasy. I was with you for the money. That's it. There's nothing left to take now. You've got debt, no house, and a courtroom full of people who just watched you get wrecked. Her face fell apart in real time. Whatever pride she had left shattered on the floor. She reached out toward him, her voice small, desperate. Mark waited. He backed away like she was something he didn't want to catch. I'm done. Go find someone else to leech off. And just like that, he walked out, didn't look back. Left her sitting there, makeup cracked hands, shaking eyes, full of nothing. I didn't feel victorious. I felt hollow, like this wasn't justice, just closure. As I walked past her on my way out, she looked up. For a split second, her lips parted like she might say something. Maybe I'm sorry. Maybe help me. But nothing came out. I didn't stop. The courtroom door shut behind me, and with it, 8 years of love betrayal and war. 6 months passed. No more court dates. No more emails. No more headlines in my mind screaming what I'd lost. Just silence. The kind I'd forgotten existed. I moved 2 states over. Found a little town no one brags about, tucked between pine woods and a river that barely made the map. Rented a cabin. Fixed up the porch myself. Started working part-time at a local carpentry shop. Just me, my tools, and the smell of fresh-cut cedar. And Scout, he was a rescue mutt, with one ear that didn't stand up, and a tail that wagged like he owed me something. I found him at the shelter after driving around one rainy afternoon with nowhere to be. The woman there said he didn't get along with anyone. Bit 3 volunteers. Growled at kids, but when I walked in, he came straight over, sat at my feet, and looked at me like he recognized something broken in me. I adopted him on the spot. Didn't even think twice. Our days were quiet. Mornings, with coffee on the porch. Scout snoring beside my boots. Walks through the woods behind the cabin. Evenings, fixing old furniture that people left behind, turning them into something useful again. Kind of like what I was doing with myself. I didn't date, didn't flirt, didn't even really think about it. My heart was still somewhere out there, maybe in a crater in Bagram, or maybe still trapped in that email I opened months ago. I wasn't in a hurry to find someone new. I just needed to remember how to be alone without feeling lonely. Then one Sunday, I walked into town for groceries. Scout waited outside the coffee shop, tied to the bike rack, like usual. I grabbed a cup of black and sat down by the window. That's when I saw her, Emma. She looked thinner, not sick, just drained, like the kind of tired that doesn't come from lack of sleep, but from carrying years of regret. She didn't see me at first. Then her eyes caught mine. She froze, one step from the door. We locked eyes for maybe 5 seconds. She didn't smile, didn't cry, didn't ask for forgiveness, but her eyes said everything her mouth never would. I see what I lost. I know what I did. And I know there's no way back. I gave her a small nod. Not forgiveness, just finality. She nodded back and walked away. I watched her disappear into the crowd. Then I turned back to my coffee. Scout barked once from outside like he was telling me it was time to head home. So I finished my drink, walked out into the sunlight, untied the leash, and we started walking. No rush, no plans, just two souls quiet in our peace. I don't know if I'll ever fall in love again. I don't know if I even need to. But I do know this. I made it through war. Then I made it through her. And now I'm finally learning how to live for me. I don't know if what I did was right. I don't even know if it was wrong. There are nights I still sit on that porch, coffee in hand, Scout at my feet, wondering if I could have done something different, if I should have. Have you ever been in a moment like that, where the person you trusted the most shattered everything, and you had to choose whether to fight, forgive, or simply walk away? If you have, what did you do? I'd really like to know. Thank you for listening.